This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and MV Velman.
It's the Lekker Rugby Pod, and this is not a normal rugby pod. This is the one where we, we've now gathered our wits and we've calmed down and the emotions have subsided. And we had to take a cold, long, sober look at what happened last weekend. And Harry, how's it? What did you think? What did you come? What's the word now? What I'm looking for? Revelation that you come to.
Yeah, rugby revelations. I like that. I think everyone who plays golf has those experiences, where you wake up in the middle of the night and you go, I know how to fix my swing. Rugby is similar in that you have so many things to fix. You fix one thing and another thing comes up. You fix the scrum, the line out bothers you, or you have the correct mix or ratio, but then you miss a kick and you lose a game. I do think that anyone who hopes, and I think South Africa always thinks this, hopes to be the world's best team, the world's best rugby team, you never really take a loss at home lightly. It doesn't mean you panic. To all those who say, don't panic, it was a bounce of the ball. You have, the guy in his third test just had to let the ball run out and you win the game. Sure, but why were we even in that situation to begin with? Having pummeled them in Loftus, and let's be clear about one thing, that was a 10-plus point victory in Loftus. It was just a matter of some missed kicks. It was clearly one team on the day there. An advantage, and you can put something to bed. You can shut someone up. You can make someone be quiet for a year plus. You do it. If you're the All Blacks from 2010 to 2017, that dominance, which is what Rassie claims he wants, then that's what you do. And you still bet in new players. You still have a Sasha come in and you still win the match. So I think we like to look at it more from that standpoint. It's not that we're in any way denigrating the Irish victory. They were amazing on the day. As my friend Bernard Jackman said on a pod that I was just with him on, he said it was the biggest victory Ireland's ever had. So if that's true, then it's also a really regrettable loss for us, because that means that they didn't think they were supposed to win that. With 2 minutes to go, I said, Birch, did you think in your heart, did you feel you're going to win? Because I thought too many miracles have to happen for Ireland for us to lose. And he said, no, I didn't believe those miracles could happen. It's too far to go, 70 meters. No one runs by face. So you got to put the ball on the toe, which means you got to steal a line out because the ball's going to go out. But when the ball, is our ball, then you have another, all those things had to happen. So I think it's important to look at it. If you want to be true analyst, if you want to have a stake in the game, if you want your voice to be heard, you want things to matter and change, then I think you do look at ratios of carry and ratios of tacklers. You look at possession. You look at what could have been different. How many big ball bopper carriers do you need? All that's fair game. But none of it means that we don't think Ireland deserved the victory. And we're not crybabies. We're not whiners. We're not saying that the double card would have changed. No one knows, first of all, what would have happened if something else didn't happen.
Yeah, no, we've been accused of varyingly being either too subjective, too objective, very balanced, very fair, completely unfair, completely biased. So thank you for all of that. But we're just basically South African rugby fans talking about South African team that lost on home soil. That's the point that we're trying to make. Yes, we might have won by a single point. The other way, could have gone the other way. We might have, charged down that drop kick if we were lucky. Lots of things might have happened. The point is that we lost, and it's not so much that we lost, but that we lost the way that we lost. We didn't play well. Lots of things went wrong. There was a supposedly newfangled Tony's way and all kinds of exciting plans. And in 2 tests, it basically delivered one try. We battled in the lineouts. The scrums, we were good. I'm going to ask Ox how the scrums went. He doesn't take that kindly, as we know. But lots of things to talk about. And one of the things that was standing out for that test for me was the fact that the Irish took us on physically and sort of manhandled us to a degree. And people are saying, but how do we know that the Irish were really taking us on? Because we didn't ask the players. You had something to say about that?
Oh, I do talk to the players. I'm not going to reveal name by name, but I have enough of an inside information on that to say for sure that was the real battle. The battle was a brawl on the docks in Durban. It was, longshoremen versus strike breakers. It was, cabbies versus Uber. It was like you're taking away something from you. They said, I want to take that away from you, Boks. I want to take away the idea that you're the swaggering guy that's walking into the bar and I got to move. Andy Farrell was apparently livid. And all during the week, he didn't say one word about TMOs. He accepted manfully and properly, actually, that the Loftus win was pretty easy. It was never really in doubt. They were chasing the game the whole time because they were just pushed around. And what he said was the Boks stole our lunch money. They took our lunch. Come get it back. And so Durban was all about, could McCarthy, could James Ryan put in for a specific purpose, Peter Armani bench because he didn't show enough fight, could Kalen Doris not only beat Kwagga Smith, but kind of humiliate him. Could, Peter Steph du Toit is not going to lose to anybody. So that's, put to the side. But could we make Sia have to put his nose in the meat grinder and he doesn't want to because he wants to run on the trams? Can we kind of just take buckitude and make it ours? And for 40 minutes they did. I'm sorry, guys, but that's exactly what happened. Now you say, well, how do I know that stitches were targeted and bandages? Because that happens on every rugby pitch. If you come on the field, you declare yourself fit. But if I strap myself 17 times around my knee, you're a fool not to tackle my knee. Doesn't mean you got to break it. Doesn't mean that you can do that. No one can necessarily break a leg unless they know Drickus du Plessis or something. But I do think there was an element of saying, we'll meet you at the coalface. We'll meet you at the brim of the trench. It's you versus me, and me and my brother against you and your brother, and see what happens. And I would just say that probably at Oranges, the Bok coaches were probably saying the same thing Andy Farrell said at the end of Loftus, and which is why the 18-3 run happened. Because for the next part of the match, for 30 minutes, 25 minutes, it was the Boks taking them on and winning those engagements. But by that time, they were bloodied. People were broken. Legs were broken. Egos were a little bit smashed. And so that's how the Irish won that match. It doesn't mean that the Boks didn't find a way with Andre Pollard directing things, with Creel and De Allende winning their engagements and winning it back, and Ox and the bomb squad winning those scrums decisively. I've never seen scrums go one way that much in a tier 1 match. But it meant that just like at Loftus, the Boks were chasing the game the whole time. That's the change. That's what you take away from it, is you cannot start badly in a 1 versus 2 match. Same thing happened with the All Blacks in England. You just cannot be chasing the game. That being said, Springboks have won second halves for years now, for 3 years in a row. That's been the better portion of the game, because the slow poison works better, the Boks slow poison works better, and because they have superior depth. But in this case, they left too much too late, and then it came down to a bounce of a ball.
The big debate is always, are South Africa, or is South Africa really the best team in the world? Can we say that, having won the World Cup now for twice in a row with 1 point margins in the last one, and then we go and lose most of the games in between? And I said to you this in our previous pod. I don't like that. I understand the need to experiment and take a couple of losses here or there. But the point is, if you want to claim to be the best team in the world, you have to be the best team in the world. Yeah, and you can't expect everybody to win all the time. But I want you to win all the time. If you really want to be the best, you have to act like you're the best. And I think, I don't know, there's something missing here, and I'm going to get crucified for this by my fellow South Africans. But there's something is not right. There's something, some element that I can't put my finger on quite, is something is missing. And I don't know what it is. And we've speculated this week, maybe it's the calming influence of a Jacques Nienaber. Maybe it's the detail-oriented approach of a Felix Jones. But something that was there before is not there anymore. And maybe it's early days. Maybe it's too soon to talk about it. But I'm concerned. I'm telling you now, for the championship coming up, I think we're in for a rough ride.
We're too sensitive. I know it's going to be unpopular as well, but I think we are too affected by the significance, the underdogism. We're peaks and valleys kind of team. For sure, we're still the best team in the world because we're ranked number 1, and those rankings factor in 3 years of moving averages and results. And everyone would change places with Africa right now if they could. So let's just put that straight. We're number 1. But we're a narrow number 1. We're not a dominant number 1. We're not a formidable number 1. We're much more like tennis or golf, where Grand Slams and some guys, what's the guy's name? Koepka or Rory or Scheffler. Some of them just play well every week, and some of them peak. And then in the end, you're known for that. So this era will be known for Springbok mastery in World Cups, knockout wins, British lines, etc. But it's too much of a drop off when it's so-called friendly. You would need for players to be less motivated by extreme fitness and mano a mano, I'm better than you, and more by a pride in your craft and everydayness. Take my lunch to work and do the best thing I can do. There's too much of a drop off between. I do think also some people are sailing a bit on their reputations, and so there's a need to refresh. So you put 990 caps on the pitch, you're saying, we are who we are. Birch Jackman told me, though, that he wouldn't have done much different from first test because, like he said, the Springboks won that handily. So why wouldn't you put the same thing in the field? I differ with him on one issue, which is there were a couple of things in that first game that didn't work. And I think it's proud to say, I'll just keep Kwagga on at 8 when it's a failed experiment. So I do believe in experiments, but then believe your lab results. If you go in for a blood test and you come back and there's something dirty in your pee, do something about it. So to the rejoinder to that would be, the rebuttal would be, and I get this play too, is an experiment sometimes needs more time. So if they thought they saw something in the Kwagga experiment, which was the middle of the field patrol, so we need to have a very fleet Lucy in the middle if we're going to have Peter Steff and Sia play wing, double wing, like extra wing, then we're going to have a bigger match to patrol. But then why does Kwagga only have 3 tackles in the second test? Why is he so easily cleaned? He's like, he's like a little smudge on your plate that just drops, so you just wipe it off. I want my Lucy to be like the grease on the floor of the garage where you could never get it off. Like you can scrub all the time. How do you get marks off? You have to almost kill him. It turns out you have to break his leg to get him off. I want that level of limpidness. I want a barnacle on the side of the ship. So I do think the Kwagga experiment was one would have changed. The other thing was, and I think you might have alluded to this, is maybe switch the bomb squad again at scrum, because sometimes you keep doing that, you platoon your props and you keep them fresh, because you're asking a lot of a prop like Frans Malherbe to get across the field and clean a ruck when he had 55 minutes already. He did a lot of carries and tackles too. Vincent Koch. I just sometimes if you switch that order up, it's difficult because then Porter has a different opponent. Now Porter has to face Koch, and your backup prop, Healy has to face Malherbe. And so sometimes you can, I think there was a potential to do that. I would have made only 2 changes maybe. In terms of shape, though, I do think for real, the Boks were trying to carry too much from outside backs. I think you look at Doris being their top carrier for Ireland, 29 carries over 2. That's the right shape. And then you go, well, how do we do that with Kwagga? And the answer is you can't. His first carry got smashed back. I do think tackling was superb. By the second test, it was harder for Ireland to find a gap. So that wasn't the issue. I think the defense got actually better. But I think it was the heavy carrying was not there for South Africa to put pressure on, keep it on, and cross the line. The other thing I think is, I don't know, the kicking game, we've talked about this a lot, about dropouts and distance and so forth. That's something the coaches have to take on. And I don't think Pollard is rightfully blamed for doing something that looked like a pre-planned tactical move. So that's something we can also say they didn't adapt. As you pointed out, Ireland did kick differently in Test 2. And the changes in their kicking and the changes in their personnel all seemed to work. And the lack of changing by the Springboks all seemed to not work.
I think as you were talking there, it started to crystallize in my mind what I'm trying to say. And it's a fact that at the moment, the Springboks are neither fish nor fowl. They're not a running team, and they are a running team. And they're not a forwards dominant team, and they are a forwards dominant team. They are a kicking team, and they're not a kicking team. They're a little bit of everything and nothing of, a jack of all trades and master of none. Whereas in the past, we were good at kicking and good at, letting possession go, but then defending for our lives and winning games like that. Now suddenly we want to be a running team, while at the same time we want to be a forwards team, and at the same time we want to do a kicking team. And the only time it really works is when we reverted back to what worked for us in the past, like in the second half now. So the question that, okay, I know it's early days, and I know it's too soon to really ask this question, but is it really going to work for us going forward? You know, when we come up against the All Blacks and trying to play like the All Blacks, doesn't it just play directly into their hands? That's to me is more or less where I think we're going wrong at the moment.
No, I think you're right. So it's about knowing who you are and what you can do. And you can wish and hope. And I just try to never use those two words in my life at all. You know, I wish we had this, or I hope we do this. I think you have to say brutally, honestly, in every sport, exactly what you are. You need to know how long your arms are. You need to know how quick your burst is. I think you need to know what your stamina level is. And, you know, strength to weight ratio. These are all measurables, but also there's some immeasurables, which is, you know, can I change? Can I adapt? Can I calibrate with inside a match? And I think what happened was you saw a more adaptive team. I don't think Ireland always works with the same level of athlete as we do. I think they have a little bit less athleticism, a little bit less power. I don't think they have a Sneeman running around. I don't think they have a Colby running around. But they seem to be able to funnel us into the places they want. So even though we definitely ran more, our meters per carry were better. And significantly, 3.5 meters per carry for the Boks over the 2.7. 2.7 versus 3.5 is actually huge because of it's not so much about that split between the two numbers, it's the percentage. If I know I can carry for 3.5 meters every carry, and you know you can only do 2.7, and we just carry against each other, I'm going to win, except Josh van der Fleer, Doris, so forth can get over the ball. The second thing is defenders beaten. Again, that was a Bok feature. So the problem with that is you start thinking, I can fend Peter O'Mahony twice, I can run over Robbie Henshaw, and I can make more meters. But what happens next in rugby is so important, because Ireland was content to make us run down blind alleys and soak it all up. And then we didn't have that second option, that third option that Billy brings, where somehow we find a miracle ball or we find a break. So Tony Brown's system notwithstanding, it seems like we're still in the same spot, which is, if someone can meet us on the gain line and front up, and if they can soak up our tackles long enough to where we make a mistake or they can get over the ball, what do we do next? You know, are we doing kick passes like the All Blacks? Not really, because our Lekkerbeks are not able to get above, 6'3" guys. Are we able to get a bust through the middle? Ireland found holes in the middle. They knew they couldn't get around Colby and Arendse. It's impossible. Who can get around those guys? Nobody. They're Lekkerbeks. So they just said, we're going to come through the middle with props, tip passing to locks. Joe McCarthy suddenly becomes a break guy. So we are not adapting enough to do that. I worry a little bit about our ability to carry this forward. And I think we'll almost do this for a while and then revert back in about a year and say, actually, it didn't work for us. We're better off with the power and pace.
Well, that's going to be my next question. People are saying we're unnecessarily negative and we should, embrace the new style and everything else. But I mean, you have to face reality. You've said it now many times in this conversation, is going forward, especially with the Rugby Championship. What should we keep and what should we change? If you were Rassie today, what would you do?
I would do whatever makes a crowd in the Boerland or at Loftus happy, and I would stop doing things that make the crowd in Durban applaud. So I think there's a lot of this that has entertainment value, which is, I know for sure if I whip boss, 13, makes a break, and Colby does some dancing, that's going to make everyone happy. I worry about that not really working to win test matches. I do think that at Loftus, as I sat there, I thought every single thing we're doing right now makes sense. I'm excited. I like it. I like that it's grim and foreboding. I like that it makes Irish people so unhappy. I like it that every single guy on the Irish team looks like they're having the worst day of their life. That's what I like. I worry a bit sometimes when we're just trying to make no one moan or like avoid the boo when there's a box kick. Look, there's a reason why box kicks are invented and why they work, is because it's not the question of is it exciting to do a box kick? It's that if we didn't do a box kick, what would have happened next if we didn't? That, whatever that's called, there's a stat there, which is you go one too long, one phase too many. It's the worst and stupidest part of rugby. It's like running into touch when you're a wing. It's the worst possible thing. It looks like, no, it's okay. No, it's terrible to ever run into touch as a wing. You should be benched immediately, and someone should really make sure you're sad. So I think Bok rugby has to follow certain doctrines. And then on top of that, what we're looking for is when we get into the red zone, how can we break that open and score? That's Tony Brown's job, not the other stuff. It's just when we can get an entrance, where we had 7 entrances into the 22 and came away with, less than 1 point each. Ireland had less entrances, but came away with 2 or 3. That wins a match. So, and those are set plays. Those are like setups from dropouts. So when the Irish drop out, what's our play? When the Irish kick a little bit too long, what's our setup? Do we have a Damien Willemse piercing run, throw it to Kirtley, that kind of thing we saw against England, I think 2 years ago. Where is that? Because I think fractured ball, open space ball is going to be Bok ball. I don't think it's going to be necessarily phase 3, with 3 rucks and, relying on Mostert to get to every ruck. It's just, it's a lot to ask for big forwards to get there.
Okay, Harry, I think we've sort of, answered the critics and the naysayers and the guys who cheer us on and everything else. We've got a very wide variety of audience, like we said. And we want to make the point here that we basically just love rugby, and we're not necessarily a negative or necessarily positive. And my approach has always been, and I think yours is to a degree the same, is we're just basically having a beer, chatting about rugby. And because we're South African, we are necessarily a bit subjective, and we admit to it openly. But we will admit to when we were outplayed, like we were last weekend, that we were just outplayed by a brilliant Irish side, a brilliantly coached Irish side. I think it's important to point that out.
Deserved winners, and winners in the best possible way, which is when you don't really have superiority, but you still win. Oh, those are the ones you love the most, the David Goliath thing. Although I would say the Irish team is bigger than the Springbok team substantially. If you take Sneeman out, across the board, they're taller, bigger, and certainly in the back line. No, I think, we should walk the walk. I think both of us like coaches who front up after losses. I think if we win well, we have to lose well. And to say that someone's deserved winner doesn't mean we couldn't go back and say, now, how could we have won? How could the favorite have won? I think that's important for favorites to think about, because then you don't deserve to be a favorite the next time if you don't. There are fixable things. There were things that were 5% here, 2% there, 1% there that would have changed things. I don't think Ireland had as many things they could have changed to make themselves better. And you had some people, just superb performances from Jamie Osborne, from Kieran Frawley, from Conor Murray, benched and then comes back and sort of, runs the ship. That's outstanding. It could have been Peter O'Mahony could have been pretty sore about being dropped to the bench, but look at him coming on and making an immediate impact by jarring the ball from Marco van Staden. So I do think you look at this match and you say it's rich, it's worthy of study. It's like anything good in life. It's worthy of looking at again and again. It's the kind of thing you case study. So in all walks of life, you get better by when something bad happens, you don't say, who did this to us? You say, how can we do it better? And usually when you say, how could I do something better? You have to look at failures first. And then you have to say, who could I copy? Because, nothing's invented anew under the sun. So Springbok rugby can look at what is being done well in Ireland and study it and adapt it. I don't think it's exactly like for like. I just don't think it's ever going to fit that way. But I think there were parts of the Irish game that I really enjoyed watching, especially from the breakdown. And I don't know if Asia Khaleesi, Pieter-Steph du Toit, Kwagga Smith was ever going to be my idea of a proper loose trio for South Africa. Now you could say Jasper Wiese was out because of a upside down tackle in the Premiership. Fair. But then, we also have to like understand exactly what happens on the bench there. Is Kwagga still the bench player? Those are all things that I think the coaches will rip apart. And listen, I have faith in them. Bernard Jackman told me something today that I thought was interesting. You learn so much more from losses. So of course, Ireland learned more from Loftus than the Boks did. That makes sense. So now I think the Boks need to learn a lot from Durban.
And I'm glad you mentioned Bernard Jackman now. It's important to tell people that the 8-9 combo, your and Brett McKay's other rugby podcast, is also on MEGAFOON from now on. First one going out Thursday night. You talked about to Bernard Jackman, and you asked him the question specifically: was this the greatest Irish victory ever? Yeah, she'll have to watch the podcast to find out. So I'll put the link in the description below, just so you know. All right, Harry, do you want to talk about that team you were talking about, you chose? Because I read it. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I hope I can remember everyone I picked. I think I had 5 South Africans, 5 Aussies, 4 New Zealanders, and 1 Argentinian in my Southern Hemisphere team of the 2 test series. You had to play in both tests, and it was only rugby championship team. So I wasn't looking at Samoa or Fiji or Tonga. And I actually came up with, I think, a pretty strong team, but it was based on numbers and performances in that match. Two positions that were not that great to pick from were number 2 and number 10. It wasn't the best of times for fly-offs and hookers, but across the other positions, it was really phenomenal. You had guys like Rob Valentini playing out of his skin, Peter Steph-Toy, who's the man of the match in every match. Pablo Matera, remember that guy? 15 carries, 15 tackles. Come on, this is ridiculous. Ox Inche scrumming his life. The All Blacks also doing really well in the scrum. I think one weird thing about this whole thing, Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere, was that the scrums went the way of New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, and even Argentina. And the lineouts went the way of Ireland, England, Wales. That doesn't make any sense to me. And at some point, I was joking about Cody Taylor, who I still picked, but he was throwing the ball to Maro Itoje more than he was to Scott Barrett. Just something that has to be fixed there. But no, it's good fun. Like it's, like subjective, objective things. It's hard to pick a team.
It's like James Lowe last weekend. Most try assists for the Springboks.
Yeah, he loved Cheslin Colby.
All right, this weekend, couple of internationals, but the one that we're interested in is South Africa versus Portugal. Let me just say this: a lamb to the slaughter, if ever you've seen one.
Yeah, I always liked the idea of Portuguese fans running around in Bloemfontein. It's just a funny image to me. I don't know what to think of this match, actually. It's a very sharky team that's been named. What do you think about the back line being so sharky? And then I think it's the only time where the back line is that much more experienced than the pack.
No, I like of the 2 parts of the team, I like the backs the most. Mane is there. I would have personally liked to have seen Sasha being given a start. But I suppose Mane is going to start getting upset, because he hasn't played at all so far. Anything he's been used for is to imitate the opposition fly-off, which apparently is one of his skills. He's good at copying the opposition, and they use him in training. But otherwise, I think it's a damn good team. I'll be honest. I'm a little upset about Edwin van der Merwe getting injured in the Currie Cup game. That wasn't a good thing. I would have liked to see him get another run. I think he's got huge potential. The only thing with him is he's not that young anymore, so he needs to get the time to play. And I'm surprised that Sia Masuku never got any chance. He's not playing for the Sharks, but he's not playing for the Boks. So I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's injured, floating around in purgatory somewhere. But I like this team, I'll be honest. I think it's a good team. The one thing I am not impressed with, though, is Jan-Hendrik Wessels at prop. That's not a good move. I saw him last week for the Bulls, where they tried him out. They were told to use him against the Griffins of all teams, and it didn't go well. And this week he's a Springbok in that position. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, so what I hear about Masuku is that his defense is suspect at the test level, side to side, straight on good. It's probably a matter of maybe dropping a few kgs. Fassi, what I hear from there is that the coaches are fascinated by certain advantages he has physically. And it's a matter of finding those spaces, a little bit like England's doing right now with Emmanuel Baboso, is if you can get him into some space somewhere, it's not that many people who can stay with Fassi. He doesn't have the kind of rugby smarts yet, and maybe it's just a matter of playing enough rugby where he can get himself into those. It's almost like creating your own shot in basketball versus have to be fed the ball. But you would think that Andre and particularly Lucanio Am would be able to manufacture some of those things. And there you have a kernel of a cohesion there with Andre, Lucky, and Fassi with, is it Mapimpi? Yeah, Mapimpi. So you have some people who know how to talk each other with, quick directives, here, there, left, right, which cunt on the side. And that could work. I'm a bit worried about getting ascendancy with the pack, but I do like the idea of looking at these guys, and I do think you have to do that. I think, you know, this is the proper kind of match to experiment with. I think it's a little bit sad almost, though, to take Portugal into Bloemfontein and then just get run over, you know, in that hard field. So hopefully they'll put up a fight and we can see some proper scrummaging. If you're going to hide a bad scrummaging prop because you think is a good carrier or something else, then maybe this is the place to go.
Yeah, but I think this obsession of versatility is becoming a bit of an issue. Today I was at Loftus speaking to the Bulls coach, and his mantra for this entire Currie Cup season is versatility. They want players who can play more than one position. Where did we hear that before? We heard it at the Boks. But then I go pick a prop that is actually he used to be a prop. No excuses there. But he's been a hooker for a while now, and a good hooker, good enough to be selected for the Springboks. And how to use his versatility as an excuse? I mean, there are better props out there. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm going to leave that there. What is important to me is the fact that Salman Murat is now the new captain. We were wondering about his not his captaining abilities. I think he's a good leader. I think he's got that kind of pedigree behind him. But whether he really is a number 4 lock, to me, is up for debate.
He's definitely a good captain. He's a good human. I think he talks well. He grew up, you know, around people who knew how to manage sports and were, you know, obviously heroes in the Western Cape. The fact that he's the first Muslim captain carries with it kind of that dignity of, like, you would imagine he would not want to let his community down. So you would think he's going to be managing the captaincy right. I think you're right about the other issues, but are you a mongrel enough at the ruck? Will you put your elbow down in the line out just so that, you know, it racks that guy's elbow the right way? I mean, there's just little tricks and twists and turns in Test rugby that require you to be a bit of a bastard, you know, and stay on the right side of the ref as well. On the versatility thing, I'll just say this. Coaches are looking at analytics and they see that there's fewer and fewer scrums, and that's probably the wave of the future. If you take the number of scrums, average scrums now in a test match compared to, say, 2000 and go back from 1990, it's exponentially fewer. The other thing is that there's more rucks, almost twice as many rucks, in some cases 2.5 times as many rucks. So the numbers on your jersey become less and less important. You just have to clean. Even if fly-off has to clean. You saw Andre Pollard cleaning in Durban, a ruck. So I guess that's it. The other thing is cards are more ubiquitous. So as cards come into play more, you have to shift people around more. And if the South African way is to more and more play 6-2 or 7-1, then you also have to do something like that. So maybe that's the issue. However, I think you're very astute to put out that, you know, if you start a match with everyone being mix and match, then you're too much of everything and not enough of one thing. And that gets back into that sort of like the fox and the who was it, the two animals, like you need to have sometimes just an animal that knows what it is. You know, I'm a shark, I'll bite you. I'm a lion, I'll hunt you down. So I do think there's still a place for tight head props, loose head props that, you know, like Ox, he walks the earth knowing exactly what he can do, and he does that really well. And he gave the Boks a really big edge against Ireland. You could actually argue that it was the scrum that allowed the Springboks to even be in the picture at all in Durban.
I hear your point about the quantity of the scrums, you know, being exponentially less or exponentially fewer. The point is the quality is so much more important. So when it does happen, it's so much more important. I mean, it won and lost us a World Cup. It's won us a World Cup and lost a couple of other teams. Lost them the World Cup. So, yeah, okay, it's not Portugal, it's something else. Maybe it's, you know, like you said, it's a trial run. Let's see how it goes. Because he's a very good ball player. He's got very good hands, very good, you know, everything else he does. Maybe the scrumming is not that important against Portugal. But I mean, that's 1 or 2 games. And then next time, when it is important, are you going to choose him or select him? No, you're not, because he's not a good scrummager. Anyway, enough.
That's a good point. There's two countervailing trends. Like, so the percentage of scrums that result in a penalty, that is exponentially higher too. So you're on a knife edge at every scrum engagement, and it's not just that you're going to fold or put a knee, come back up. No, if you put a knee down, even if you come back up, you're going to get pinged. Whereas 20 years ago, it doesn't matter. It was about completing the scrum. So I think that's fair enough. And also I asked someone, a coach one time, Laurie Fisher, a good Australian forward coach. I said, if I had to give you one stat on the beginning of the match that you could absorb, it's like 4 charge downs against you, 4 scrum penalties against you, 4 interceptions against you, or 4 line breaks. What do you like the least? And he said scrum. If my scrum collapses, not only will I get a card and you get an easy entry, I could tackle you on the break. On the interception, you may not be able to get to the house, depends on who intercepts it. And charge downs, it's a lottery. But a scrum it's creaking, I don't know what to go. I have to replace my props early. So there is something still at winning the scrum that has a knock-on effect, and your mentality also is affected by it. If you're a forward, you're kind of emasculated when someone just rolls over you.
Now, yes, the one thing about the team that bothers me is in South Africa, number 6 flanker. So obviously it's the number 7. Pepsi Buthelezi is not a 6, not a South African 6. So no. I don't know, he's been supposedly shadowing CR and studying his ways and, like a yogi or something like that, or Yoda. The point is, he's an 8. Again, it's a Kwagga situation. Kwagga wasn't an 8, he was a 6. Now they're making an 8 a 6. And they even talk about maybe moving Evan Roos to 6 and Elrich Low coming at 7 and Hanekom maybe ending up at 8 eventually. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, that horses for courses. You can't have a one-size-fits-all approach. That's another way to put it, I think.
It's very interesting. So I was around the Sharks in London for the semi-final in their Challengers Cup, and I got to hang around the guys. I got to even scrum against Ox. But you saw the guys walking through in their, shorts and just strolling around. I saw Buthelezi. I swear to you, if you just walked up to Buthelezi and you saw him as the way he's shaped, the way you would never think of him as an open sider. He almost looked like one of those really big wings, like how sometimes the Kiwis, or like for a while you had George North run that for Wales, or those kind of guys. He just looked built like a speedster. He didn't look like a guy who wants to rip out the toilet from the plumbing and smash something. He's a phenomenal athlete. It reminds me of like Pierce Spies, where you go, would Pierce Spies have had a better career if he was on the wing? I don't know. You want to get that guy in space because he's hard to tackle, but so much of the game is played in the dark places, in the places where you just got to be able to put your, like a Franco Mostert kind of places.
Well, you mentioned the one place where Ireland really beat us badly was at the breakdowns, and maybe this is an experiment to see if we can sort that out. But, again, you're choosing the wrong personnel. And I think that we're going to have another Kwagga situation coming up here. Not so much that we're going to lose, where Kwagga made a couple of vital, critical errors, but simply that someone's not suited to the job. I wouldn't be surprised to see Roos, for example, and Buthelezi swapping places. It's kind of an experiment. Where Roos is sort of more of a 6. He's played 6 for Stormers this season a couple of times, and successfully so. I'm not sure about Buthelezi. I'd like to see if that actually happens.
I talked to Michael Checa when he was Argentina coach, and I said, what's the deal with you picking Pablo Matera, Marcos Kremer, and who was the number 8? It might have been Isa, Facundo Isa. It's almost like they're all like for like. There was no difference. I was Juan Martin Gonzalez. And like everyone's a runner, everyone's a carrier, everyone's a cleaner, everyone's a lineout. And what he said was he liked the ability to have any situation happen on the field and it didn't matter. And he thought that the 3 were smart enough where they could, on the fly, they could figure out who's approaching the inside ruck, who's the second arrival, and who's the third guy who hangs off and does the link. So I think the Bok coaches are thinking of Roos in that way. I think they think he's got the aggro and the size and the body to do all 3. I know for sure that they think Jason Dixon has a bit of a Peter Steph du Toit in him in the work rate and the ranginess. Elrich Low can play all 3 positions easily. He can play lock too. You might be looking at sort of a longer term philosophy, and they're willing to have some clumsiness, but they want to have 3 breakaways who can take it to the house and run anything in. They want to have 3 guys who are line out options, and they want to have someone who can get over the ball. The one area where I don't think that always works or works easily is fetcher. I just think that's a special skill set that you have to be comfortable. I think Sia Khaleesi's never become comfortable really being a proper open sider. And I think there's still a place in the game for a Tommy Raffel or a Josh van der Fleer or a Tom Curry who just messes up your attack. Single-handedly takes all your pretty plans and throws them out the window.
When I see Fetcher, I see Heinrich Brousseau.
Yes.
Short legs, tall upper body, so that you can, a low center of gravity. To me, that, like even a Malcolm Marx, but he's freakishly strong. That's why he's able to be that. He's not built that way, but that's what I see.
Malcolm's flexible too, so he can get like in Giraffe at the waterhole. He can get really wide, right? So then you cannot get him off. No, I know exactly what you mean. When Brousseau got over something, you knew like that's it, done, finished. And even if he only got 3 steals or 2 steals in a match, it was the 7 or 8 other ones where you thought he was going to or he was about to that he slowed your ball down. I think that's still in a squad of 35. I would always carry one of those guys.
I remember David Pocock. I'm sorry, I just shouted out his name when it came to me. That guy had the longest arms I've ever seen on a human being. I'm telling you. It was a good player. Yeah. Anyway. Right then.
Pocock was a solo like attack killing player. He could literally have whatever plans you wanted. Tony Brown, meets Joe Schmidt and they have a baby. It doesn't matter. Pocock could defeat that because he just would go 1, 2, 3, hands up, make sure the ref even clap and make sure that he knew he was disengaged, and then go over again, and then you could not move him without breaking his neck.
Yeah. Talking about the fly off quickly, we talked about that briefly in the beginning. The fact that they picked Marnie now. Do you think it's simply to keep him sort of happy? Keep the fans happy? We've got a lot of vocal supporters, either for or against Marnie whenever he's on the field or not on the field. A lot of voices going up there. Like I said earlier, I would have loved to see Sasha getting a proper run at 10 for the Springboks to see what he can bring into the attack. We know what Marnie can do. We know what Pollard can do. We're not sure what Sasha can do. What better opportunity than this? To me, it's sort of a wasted opportunity, I think.
There's a residual faith I have in Rassie and his coaching team that I think he knows what he's doing on this issue. I think he's managed Marnie really well. So I think there's some of that is man management, like you're saying, keeping him in the picture because he's still, that second, he's the guy that would, if you had to right now play a knockout match right now, or a match that meant everything, you'd still pick him over Sasha because of the experience factor. But I also think another thing, I think Sasha's being groomed as the Damian Willemse, as that guy, as the Frans Steyn. I think Bok Rugby for a long time now has liked the idea of someone who's a kicker, who's got a big, big boot, who's got good hands, that he's an actual tackle monster, the big utility athlete. Given that Willie is probably not sure he's going to get there, to Australia in 2027. Yeah.
Or even to 100 tests. I'm worried about all those concussions and suffering.
Yeah, for sure. And he should. I think he should really get good advice outside the team camp doctor, get a real doctor, get someone to look at your head and talk to you as a man.
All right. So your predictions, are we going to break 100, do you think?
I don't think so, but I think it could be like that Italian victory a couple of years ago where it's a 50-something, 60-something. And probably, again, it'll be frustratingly late. It'd be like, 20-something at halftime, and then the dam breaks.
I remember that talking about Italy, 101-5, if I'm not mistaken, early 2000s, something ridiculous. But I mean, this Portugal team played against Namibia of all teams last week, and they beat them 37-22, if I'm not mistaken. And that team got whooped by the Bulls, and not even the Bulls' first team. That Namibian team, I mean. That gives you an idea of the comparative strength of these two teams. I honestly think we're going to break 100. We're going to score a century.
Yeah, I think the Portuguese team is the style of team that the Boks actually hammered really badly. It's like the Romania, Italy kind of team that gives some teams trouble, but it doesn't trouble the Boks. It basically is a poor man's All Blacks team that doesn't function as well. So the Boks were born and bred. Their grandfathers were born and bred to beat that and to combat it. The kind of team that, strangely enough, that's Boks sometimes struggle with is like a Wales or England, because it's too much like playing like for like, and it grinds down.
Yeah, looking in the mirror. That's true. Something I wanted to ask you about the fact that we're playing Portugal this weekend and not a third Irish test. I know this was a decision made by World Rugby, and with the approval of all the rugby playing nations in, I think, 2018, that in the year after the World Cup, they will have these kind of tests. Just as an aside, a matter of interest, what do you think of the idea of a world number one team playing a team like Portugal?
Like a lot of things in life, the concept is beautiful. The ideal behind it is to lift the second tier so that we don't have so much of a tier. We have no tier. It's just like everyone is parity, and you have 20 teams able to win the World Cup. So I get that part. I think it's the wrong time of the year. I think they should have that stuck into the end of the year tours when you do a one-off. So you play Portugal, then you play France, then you play Ireland, then you play England. I think these July tests were a golden opportunity for World Rugby and for the unions themselves to make even more money, to raise even more profile, because how box office would it have been? It was a decider at Ellis Park. Whoa.
Yeah. You can't lift a tier 2 nation by playing them once every 4 years and then completely pulverizing them. That doesn't achieve anything. I think it achieves the opposite of what you said now, trying to set out to do, to get everybody to get, so there's no tiers or anything. It doesn't work like that. Like Namibia played 6 tests, I think, in between the 2 World Cups, and then they have to go to the World Cup and play New Zealand. I mean, it doesn't work like that. They have to. I'm not sure what this new thing is. We need to talk about that at some stage. This 28 going forward schedule. How would that work? How would that affect things?
I think that's why everyone's not really too fussed about it, because that thing, we'll just call it the thing, is coming. And so until that thing is in action, we know what it looks like and how it adjusts the schedule and calendar. I think everyone's kind of like, okay, we'll just get this thing done and then we'll see what that looks like. But right now, what you're saying is correct. So when you have Australia playing Georgia, you wonder who's actually playing. Are they going to pick it as a experimental team or not? Boks in Bloemfontein with kind of experimental lineup. It's a bit like this one time that a guy with one arm challenged me to a fight in a bar. I'm like, I'm gonna beat your ass and then I'm the bad guy. And if I lose a fight to you, then I lost a fight to a one-armed man. It's kind of no win here. How about we just shake one of your hands? Which one? No, I think it's a trouble. I don't think it's so marketing-wise. I think what we're talking about is marketing-wise. Professional development-wise, you're exactly right. You have to have a whole series, or you have to have something more regular. I think the better way of those happening is when you have a team like Uruguay, like come live in South Africa and play the Curry Cup. I think you have, examples of that, or you have routine tours by teams that, from Pacific Islands that actually play into comps like the Fijian Drua or the Moana Pacifica. I think that's what lifts it more. And I don't think these one-off things are really doing much.
Anyway, thanks, Harry. Illuminating as ever. We're going to have a proper Lekker Rugby pod next week, Monday, again, after the Portugal. We'll see how that turns out. I don't want to give it a name. Massacre, maybe not good. Not an app name. I hope not. We'll see.
That's very Windgat of you.
That's not. Like I said before, I'm objective with a tinge of subjectivity, but I mean, let's be honest, it can't be anything than a proper hiding. Us, man, actually scares me. I would be so scared if I was Portugal right now. I wouldn't sleep a wink, I tell you.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and Envia Velman.